Welcome to Pioneering a Greener Future, inside Atlantis Special Economic Zone's vision for sustainable industry and inclusive growth. A special two-part series where we explore the future of green manufacturing and sustainable investment in Africa. In this series, we dive into Atlantis SEZ's bold vision for the green economy and uncover how it's building a resilient ecosystem for investors and industries alike. Join us as we examine how this unique zone empowers green industries, supports ESG goals, and drives skills development for an inclusive, sustainable future. Whether you're an investor, a manufacturer, or a change maker, discover how Atlantis SEZ is redefining industrial growth in Africa. This episode features Matthew Cullinan, Chief Executive Officer at Atlantis Special Economic Zone. Matthew, welcome. What is the vision of Atlantis Special Economic Zone, and how does the zone define its commitment to the green economy?
I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really looking forward to sharing what we've been doing at the Atlantis Special Economic Zone for Green Technologies. We are very excited about what the future holds for manufacturing and how we're leading the way in sustainable manufacturing. I want to come back to just touching on our vision. UNEP, the United Nations Environment Program, defines the green economy as having three critical components. The first is that it should be low carbon or zero carbon, so obviously reducing carbon emissions. The second is that it should be resource efficient, so really using the resources that we have as efficiently and effectively as possible. And then the third is to drive inclusion, to take people along as we move towards a green economy, to really see how we can include people in the opportunities that come out of the green economy. So from an Atlantis SEZ perspective, we've really taken those principles and embedded them into how we've structured ourselves and how we target the industries that we want to see in the zone. And so with that in mind, our vision is to be a pioneering place where the green economy thrives. And pioneering is important because it's about trying things out. It's about exploring what the future of sustainable manufacturing looks like. If we're going to have a sustainable future, we need sustainable manufacturing, but it's not exactly clear what that's going to look like or how it's going to work. So there's a journey here, and those principles guide us on that journey to be that pioneering place.
How does Atlantis SEZ create a green manufacturing environment that supports ESG objectives while remaining competitive for manufacturers?
Great. And I think this is really one of the keys to being successful in today's world is that it's no longer a nice to have, doing what might have been called in the past corporate social investment or something like that, or having some little green programs here and there that you talk to. It's really now fundamental to how business needs to happen. You need to take care of the environmental side, the social side, and the governance side. And those are very clearly defined in terms of what is meant there and how those are measured. And we have measures across the board for that. So the way that we run the zone, we aim to make it a sustainable and green place to manufacture. So we have 5 main goals that underpin that, and we call it part of our living lab on the basis that we're exploring this journey towards sustainable manufacturing. So the first is to be net zero carbon. The second is to be net zero water. And what that means is to maintain a positive water balance between the rainfall that falls on the site and is utilized in the zone, to be net zero waste to landfill, and to work with nature. And those are 4 technical goals. They require good technology and innovation in technology to achieve. The 5th one is around inclusion, and that's the E in ESG. And inclusion is actually the most challenging one because the technology, people get excited about technology, there's investment in technology and so forth. Those are often emphasized, and those support the environmental side of ESG, but the social ones are much harder to actually define and get right. And we have a whole team driving the social side of how do we create opportunities in the green economy. And the idea being is that as we land investors into the zone, that we then work with them to see how we can maximize the impact of that investment into the community. And when I say it's no longer, a nice to have, it's an essential one for competitiveness. A good example is the new carbon border adjustment mechanism that the European Union has put in place. And for certain categories of goods like steel, they will measure the amount of carbon that was used, or carbon-based energy that was used to manufacture that steel product, and they will tax it accordingly. So if you're a South African which is producing basically from a coal-fired energy base, you are really disadvantaged if you're going to be exporting to Europe. So what we're doing is creating an environment in which manufacturers can use renewable energy, use sustainable sources of water, and really manage that whole side of manufacturing in the most sustainable way possible. We also work very closely with them to develop skills that they may need. So, and that's a big advantage to investors, because we as an entity can work with them. A lot of companies want to focus on manufacturing and doing their job. We are there to work with them to say, okay, how do we help you find the skills, develop those skills, and help grow the green economy at the same time? So that the way that we run and operate the zone is very important.
What are the target industries Atlantis SEZ is focused on attracting, and how do these industries contribute to a green and inclusive future?
First question was really about how we run and operate the zone. And this really talks to who we're trying to bring into the zone. And essentially, we're targeting any industry that will contribute to reducing carbon emissions, be more resource efficient, and work with us to drive inclusion and opportunities in the green economy. So when companies approach us and apply to invest or to become a tenant in the Atlantis SEZ, we go through a process of vetting them. So some of that vetting is just pure due diligence, financial offtake agreements, et cetera, et cetera. But then a chunk of it is how are they going to contribute to reducing carbon emissions, being more resource efficient, and working with us to support those inclusion objectives. And there's a bunch of predefined areas which you can say typically fits that definition. So for example, solar panel manufacturing is a classic example of an industry that will help us be low carbon and resource efficient. Wind turbine and tower manufacture is another example. Storage, lithium-ion battery storage, although obviously there's certain parts of that value chain which are a bit controversial, but in principle, it's helping us move towards sustainability. So those are some of the industries that kind of fit it. There's electric vehicles fits in there, and there's quite a wide range actually that fits that definition of sectors that support a future green economy. We ourselves are focusing on two specific clusters, and the one is the renewable energy cluster, so that's solar, wind, and battery storage with some EV type vehicles in that. And then the second is agribusiness. And we focus specifically on the cluster approach because that makes the zone more competitive and attractive. So, for example, if you attract a wind tower manufacturer, it's good to have a company that also does the internal components of a wind tower. It's also great then to have a blade manufacturer and a turbine manufacturer. So these are things that one wants to build up over time. So what we've got to be is a little bit strategic and opportunistic in terms of landing companies that help us achieve that. But we're focusing very much on that cluster. And we look beyond just the immediate setting up of an industry like that to the whole of life. So, for example, we're also working very closely with an e-waste recycler, extracting and recycling e-waste. And there's a number of different ways in which that e-waste can then be channeled into something like pyrolysis for energy or heat. And so that clustering approach becomes really central to who we're targeting and how we try and build up a profile of tenants in the zone that work synergistically or in a symbiotic way. This concept of industrial symbiosis is very important. And I mean, right now, we've got, let me just check that figure. We have 89 companies on our pipeline who are interested. Of those, we've taken 31 to the application stage. So we have 31 investors who have actually submitted an application to the Atlantis SEZ. That represents about 17 billion rands worth of capital investment from them, not from anybody else, their capital investment, and about 2,000 direct jobs. Now, you can imagine that opportunity in terms of us working with them and beginning to grow the other opportunities associated with that investment. So we're very excited about our list of pipeline investors. We've signed 8 site reservation agreements with those on the short list. And that means that those companies are now undertaking their environmental impact assessments. They're getting all their regulatory compliance stuff in order so they can actually move to the next step of bringing in their plant and equipment and operating. As soon as they have all those licenses and so forth in place, we will start building the factory. And it usually takes about 12 to 18 months before that whole process is complete and they're up and running. So we're very excited at the moment around the future and the level of interest.
Matt, in closing, what are the key reasons an investor should choose Atlantis SEZ, and how does the zone's ecosystem ensure a competitive and adaptable investment environment?
Thanks. I love that question because it gives me the chance to do our stock pitch in terms of what we're offering at the Atlantis SEZ, and it is really a great competitive offering. I mean, so we have seven reasons why we say people should consider investing in the Atlantis SEZ, and that's just from a straightforward practical investment perspective. The green and so forth is almost taken for granted in this context. The first one is that we have industrially zoned land. So we have land right now that has all the zonings, it's got all the services in place. You can literally arrive today and start building your factory, provided you've got all the approvals and all the rest of it in place. So that's really critical. The land is there and it's ready. The second one is linked to the green side of it, but we have secure energy, we have secure water, we have the waste management processes, and we've put a big focus on the quality of the environment that we're going to create for this manufacturing to take place. And so, for example, we're nearing the end of that zone 1. We're just putting our finishing touches. We will do a huge amount of landscaping, and we've emphasized areas for walking and cycling, and actually small little parks within our industrial complex. So a good quality environment is also part of that. The third reason is that we have support from across government, national, who helps us with the capital for the factories and the civils, provincial government, who provides our operating support, and the City of Cape Town, who really works with us around a lot of the approvals and authorizations that are required. So you're coming into an environment that is well supported by all the statutory stakeholders. The provincial government, the Western Cape, and the City of Cape Town are our shareholders as an entity. There's also then linked to that a number of incentives and grants that are available. So the most common special economic zone incentive is a 15% corporate tax rate. So if you're a complying industry, you're located in the zone, 80% of your revenue comes from what you manufacture and produce in the zone, then you potentially are eligible to apply for that 15% corporate tax rate on your profits. So that's a really great incentive that's available. We also can access funding from the DTIC to build the actual factory shell, what we refer to as the top structure. The investor must bring in their plant and equipment, but we can do the top structure. So there's a number of other grants and incentives depending on what the industrialist is doing and what their objectives are. And then the other thing which I think is really important, and Atlantis was at one stage sort of stuck out on the periphery of of Cape Town. But Cape Town has grown very close to Atlantis now. I mean, you've got Melkbos, which is like a 15, 20-minute drive away. So, and with that comes the Great Cape lifestyle, great schools, great health facilities, and just the wine farms and the environment and the lifestyle that you get. So for a foreign investor, and in fact any investor coming into that space, there's a really nice lifestyle associated with having a factory and a building in Atlantis. And on top of that, because we're so heavily focused and invested in the community and in the education of that community, including school projects that we run, for example, on digital literacy, we've got a very good and stable labor base as well. So it's a great opportunity from that perspective. Market access and green economy growth. The green economy is a growing sector. There's huge demand for products, particularly in the renewable energy space, but across the board, we are seeing huge growth. So if you're in this space, you've got a growing market, and we've got good logistics from Atlantis to the ports, to the rail, and so to the rest of the world, essentially. And then finally, the enabling clusters. I've spoken about the cluster development and so forth. But with that, there's a whole bunch of support services. Atlantis is in an existing industrial area. So there's already a whole bunch of supporting services and industries that work with the existing factories. Daimler Truck is there, the foundries, massive operation. You've got PepsiCo doing Weet-Bix. You've got PF Nonwovens, Rutamaki. So you've got really big companies and brands in Atlantis already manufacturing and doing so very happily. So it's a good environment to come into. And then the final kind of cherry on top is perhaps the best way to describe it is that there's a team in the Atlantis SEZ that can work with you to help you on your journey of landing your investment. To do a whole new manufacturing investment is a huge undertaking, and it takes years to get all the ducks in a row to be able to set up a manufacturing plant. And we can work with you along that whole journey. And we're connected with a much broader ecosystem of support within province, within the country. So we work closely with Invest SA at the DTIC. We work closely with Invest Cape Town, with Wesgrow, and with a range of other organizations like Green Cape, who can provide excellent market intelligence. So one of the advantages of really investing into the Western Cape and Cape Town is the way that all these organizations and entities work extremely well together. They all have clearly defined roles and really make for a positive experience for investors coming into this space.
A special thank you for this insightful conversation presented in collaboration with Atlantis Special Economic Zone.